and they're walking their dog, but I could tell it was a puppy just from the way it was carrying itself, and it was kind of energetic, but it was missing one of its hind legs. And I felt really bad for it. I'm just like, man, that fucking sucks. Like, it just hurts my heart, to see stuff like that. Like, I wonder what
Right,
what
right.
injury happened.
Hmm.
But then I was just kind of thinking, like, the rest of my drive to work, why do I feel bad for it? The dog looked very happy. Like, the dog was just like living its life, and
Right,
for all
right,
I know, it could have been born like that, and it just never knew what it was like to have four legs.
right. I think what's cool about it is you got to think about it. I think that's what's most important now is you could have felt that way about it, but you didn't. And I think what's better now is the fact that you got to really sit with it, sit with those thoughts, and now that dog is so much more important because it set the tone for you going forward. Where if you ever see a dog like that again, you're gonna think like, oh, that dog's living its best life. I think that that's like somebody gave it a home and is loving it despite its deformity, despite its whatever it's gone on beforehand, and I think that that's a win too.
Yeah, I like to think of it that way. Like, it looked like the owner's just taking him out for a nice leisure morning walk, and the dog was super excited to go on that walk. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is actually an interesting episode because of the fact that we're recording in the same location for the first time.
Right, right.
You took over the studio, and then I'm
Uh-huh.
I'm in my third office. The second office is the bathroom, of course.
Of course, yeah, exactly.
We had dinner first, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we're like, all right, let's hop in the episode.
Wined and dined.
One of the things I was a little self-conscious of, because I know this has happened to me going over to someone's place, but you just kind of wonder, like, are they going to see something embarrassing, or something embarrassing going to happen? I've been to a friend's house before where I was sitting at the dining table. I think my friend was in the kitchen cooking, and we're just chatting.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I just see this roach like crawl up the tablecloth, and it's like on the table, and I'm like glaring at it from the corner of my eye, and I'm just tracing it, right, as
Oh
it's walking
no.
around. And it's
No.
like one of those brown cricket looking roaches. So not as disgusting as the black ones. I'll say those are probably like the least disgusting out of all of the brethren. But needless to say, it kind of gave me a different feel and impression about going over to their place.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, don't find anything like that.
Our apartments here, I think the apartments are pretty nice and clean, but man, we have the nastiest roaches that you will ever find on planet Earth. They're like
Oof.
these giant red ones, and I've only ever seen them at this apartment. And I've been to some janky apartments, but these are like the exotic spawns of Satan,
Oh my gosh.
and they have wings and shit.
Ew.
Luckily, we're on the third floor, so they kind of have to travel a good distance to get to us. But I can only imagine the people on the first floor. If you even crack your door a little bit, you'll probably get one.
Just looming. Yeah.
I mean, they have pest control and stuff come, but I don't know. I feel like they're resistant to it. They're like they're building an
They shrug
immunity.
it off. Yeah, they
Yeah.
shrug it off. They're like, that's cute. Yeah, that's dude, it at my old apartment, we had a situation where yeah, someone roommate moved in for a bit and they had a problem with roaches before they left their place, and we were like, well, hopefully you left them, back there, but
Over there,
I
yeah.
I think they nested in their furniture, and we used that furniture, and then all of a sudden we just had this problem with roaches, and yeah, it was bad. We had pest control, which was cool. Like we had pest control come by, but they never went in. I don't know if they really went inside our apartments. I think they sprayed on the outside typically, but maybe we did spray on the inside.
Yo, we mobbing it.
We mobbing it. Let's do it.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Affliction Hours Podcast, episode 23. My name is Eric, and the other voice occupying your head this time is a man of many trades, good friend, colleague, and co-host, Michael.
Hola.
Thank you to all the listeners out there for joining us. The show is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. We're
Hey.
also on YouTube at Afflictionados Podcast, so go check us out there. As always, new episodes drop on the first Saturday of each month, 5 a.m. Pacific. This is a monthly podcast where we primarily talk about films that range from mind-numbing to mind-blowing. Sometimes we also cover TV shows or other forms of media. Of course, we will be getting into spoilers here, and there will be only the healthiest amount of expletives tossed in. You have been warned.
Mm-hmm.
If you ain't ready, then get ready, because in this episode, we will be discussing the awesome, action-packed drama. Some people might know this as simply The Professional, but I believe the official title now is a combination of the international version and the American version. So it's now called Leon: The Professional. Released in 1994, directed by Luc Besson.
Besson, also famous for The Fifth Element.
Yes.
And there was one more recently released. I forget what that one was. I think Cara Delevingne was in it, and
Oh yeah, Valerian.
Valerian. I never did get around to see it. And once it left
Eh,
theaters, I was like, it
was okay.
okay.
It wasn't that
That's a
great.
bummer.
Yeah, I got like halfway through and it was honestly it was just kind of boring. It was just this CGI spectacle, but it didn't feel like it had much substance, in my opinion.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, especially when you juxtapose that with the movie we're going to discuss tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just so there's so many layers to this movie, and the performances themselves. How did he get this cast? I mean, what the hell? It's phenomenal.
Were they all like huge names at this time? I know Natalie Portman
No,
wasn't, but
certainly not. No, certainly not. At least not in the at least as regards Jean Reno. He may have been famous in Europe, but
yeah, actually, now that I think about it, so getting into the background of The Professional, it is somewhat of a spiritual successor to one of Besson's earlier films, Nikita. So that one came
interesting.
before, and Jean Reno plays a similar type of character. So Besson described Leon as sort of like a like maybe an American cousin to the character he played in Nikita, whose name was Victor. And I actually saw this clip. So I saw his introduction in that movie. It was just like a quick like couple minute scene on YouTube. It's very similar to the intro on The Professional. So I was like, okay.
Ah,
He was more like cold hearted and just like, let's just get shit done. Whereas like Leon he's more empathetic of people.
right, exactly. Oh, which it's his empathy that it ultimately his undoing in the end, if you think of it that way. If but I don't want to spoil anything just yet. We'll get to that later. But yeah.
And there's one more thing too, like for involving the making of this movie. So Luc Besson's wife at the time stated that The Professional was actually inspired by hers and Besson's relationship because he met her when she was just 12 years old and then they began dating when she was 15.
How old was he?
He was like 32 at the time.
Interesting.
That's kind of mirroring the dynamic we see in this movie.
That's wild. Yeah. Wow. Okay. It's funny. Because now we're getting into it. We can address that later. Actually, no, I've got thoughts on that.
Okay. Put a pin in that.
We'll put a pin in that, as Walter White would say. We'll put a pin in that because I've got some thoughts on it. But yeah, no. So Leon, the Professional, calling it that kind of to me a little bit changes it. It's almost like so much more emphatic of him, whereas especially at the beginning of the movie, I mean, the whole movie is not just about him. It is, and yet it's not, because Matilda, Natalie Portman's character, is so integral, and you get to see her evolve, and you get to see her whole experience. It's a lot about revenge from her perspective, and him kind of helping her to see it through, reluctantly at first, but he's like, shit, if you're gonna do this, you got to do it right, and he teaches her as well. But I remember, it's so funny, I did see this in theaters, dating myself now. I did see this in theaters, fucking loved it. And it was funny because back then we would my dad would get the LA Times, and it was that year, wasn't it, that the movie Speed came out, if I'm not mistaken, or was it the year prior,
Was
with
it?
Keanu Reeves and
Okay.
Sandra Bullock, and that was just killer. I mean, that put Keanu Reeves back on the map in a way that I don't remember, he'd done Point Break, and I know he'd done Johnny Mnemonic, but this really put him right back on the map. And Sandra Bullock, I think, had
Yeah.
other parts. I know she'd been in The Vanishing before. So I bring this up because when we looked up movie time, when you wanted to look up a movie time, you didn't really use the internet. It was still in its infancy at the time. So what we would do is this LA Times paper. My dad would really only get on the weekends. He got the Sunday LA Times, and he would open up the calendar section, which was deep in that thick ass freaking stack of papers.
Oh yeah, it was a bunch of movie theaters and their showtimes, right?
You got it. That's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah,
Eventually,
yeah,
so
yeah.
you could just look up your area. So you could go by region or whatever, and we would look up where we lived, and which at the time I think was like San Bernardino or something. So we looked that up,
Mhm.
or near there. We would find the times for the different movies and stuff. But you would also have on that same within those pages, when you're looking for movies, you would see movie banners, right? Banner ads for these movies. And I remember we were such fans. I don't know, we might have seen Speed twice in theaters, and I'm stressing this only because when Dad handed us the paper, boys, take a look. Me and my brother, boys, take a look at see what movies we should watch today. We were always, by the way, this whole podcast, your dad was super super into movies. My
Yep.
dad was super into movies. Whenever we hung out, that's what we would do. Whenever we would get to hang out with our dad. I think it was like every other weekend is
It's passed
how we worked
down,
that out.
it's the
Right.
dynasty.
Exactly. So even now, it's funny. We're seeing movies together again, and we're making a point of doing that on the weekends. We're trying to, at least. At any rate, so we look at the paper, and I don't know if it was my brother or me, but we saw that the banner ad for The Professional, it said, in just just ridiculous font. It was just like so loud. It said. It said, "It makes Speed look like a ride to Grandma's house."
What?
And we were,
Really?
yeah, it said that, and we were both like, Paul and I looked at each other. I read it out loud, and we both looked at whoever of us read it. We looked at each
No
other, and we were like,
way.
"Dad, we gotta see this one. If it makes Speed look like a ride to Grandma's house, we gotta see this one." And so yeah, so he was like, he's all for it. Yeah, we watched Desperado around that same time too. So we were like, oh, yeah, gung ho. So we
Mm.
go to see this movie, and so I have a different relationship than anybody who might see this movie after the fact. Anybody who's listening to our podcast that might have seen it now, as someone who's older. When I saw the movie at that time, I think I was maybe 9 years old or so. So I think Natalie Portman was like 4 years older
You're
than me.
probably like just barely in the perfect demographic for this movie. Action movie,
Action
badass,
movie,
action
badass,
hero. Yeah.
badass action hero. Like, to me, Jean Reno can do no wrong. That guy is phenomenal. I know he did Ronin, and honestly, he did another. What was it? He was in Mission Impossible, the first one, and such a
Yeah.
fucking bummer of a performance. I was like, he's so much more capable than this, and I just felt like he didn't get much of a bone thrown his way. Ronin, of course, really did allow him to do a little bit more, which I'm happy about. But it's like this performance alone is just it's up there. It's perennial. I love this movie. It's fantastic. But again, there's this, I had this crush on Natalie Portman from that age. I was just
Nice.
enamored. I was enamored of her. I was like, wow. And she was so, just the gravitas she brought to that role. I was like, it was incredible. I felt it. I mean, I might have cried in the movie even. I don't remember, but I just remember just being so swept up in how badass Jean Reno was, but
Hmm.
also, or Leon, and how sassy, how cool, how street smart Natalie Portman was
She
in
was,
this
yeah.
role. It was so good. Yeah, just really thinking on her feet really quickly, especially at the end when they sneak and they catch her and everything, and how she figures out what to do to like let Leon know that it's bad.
And I guess since we're talking about the characters, we can just run down the main characters really quick. So Jean Reno as Leon, of course, the title character. I guess similar to this movie, because this movie is a French movie. It's like French American, I believe. I think
Oh,
it was kind of like produced on in both countries. But Jean Reno, I think he definitely was more prominent in Europe, and he's a Spanish French actor,
hmm.
and he was in such films as, like you said, Mission Impossible 1, which was where I first saw him. And
Oh,
it's actually kind of funny because you were saying how that role didn't do him justice.
yeah.
That was my introduction to Jean Reno, and we're not going to spoil anything in that movie, but I feel like just in the screen time he had in that movie, I'm trying to put my finger on what it is about him, but there was just something unique and captivating about his performance to me in that movie. You can tell he just exuded charisma, just naturally as an actor. I really appreciated his role and just him as an actor just from that movie, and I
Hmm.
didn't see The Professional until much later. I guess before I get into that, he was also in Godzilla, that stupid movie.
Gojira. Gojira. Is that the one
Yeah.
with Matthew Broderick?
Yep, that's the
Oh
one. The
gosh.
corny one. He was also in Rollerball, The Pink Panther, and The Da Vinci Code. But none of those I was really like super into as a kid, including The Professional. So as a kid, I remember seeing the box art and like it didn't have the cool kind of Godfather esque cover that it has now, where it's like black and white with like the high contrast.
Where he's looking up,
Yeah, yeah, and
kind
he
of,
has like his
and he's got
his
the
skull
beanie
cap, yeah,
on.
his beanie and like the
Yeah.
glasses. So I like that cover way better. But the original art, I remember it was like really like oversaturated. It was just like a bunch of muddy colors just like mixing into each other, and it just said like The Professional with like I think like the crosshairs in the O or something. And it looks super generic. The title at that time sounded super generic. I can appreciate the title now. I didn't see this movie until much later through good word of mouth. I saw it a little bit after high school and I was fucking blown away. I think I initially went in, obviously by that point, I had seen a few Natalie Portman movies and I was like, big crush on Natalie Portman. She's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I heard this was her first role and she did great. So that was a big selling point. But then I forgot Jean Reno was in it. So I was like, oh shit. I was like, yeah, that's the dude from Mission Impossible. Sick. And he was even
Funny.
better in this one, way better. And like, I can't say enough good things about his role in The Professional.
Mm-hmm.
And then, obviously moving over to Natalie Portman as Matilda. She's done so many well-known movies, but just to name a few, Star Wars prequels, of course. She was actually in Heat briefly,
I was
just like
gonna
a
say,
little
yeah.
crossover. Or crossover. She was a quick cameo. She was in Closer, which dope movie. Love that movie.
Such a good movie, but wow,
Yeah,
you got to be mentally prepared for that one.
it takes you through the ringer for sure, emotionally.
You will come out differently. There's just not unlike this movie. You will leave the movie feeling just different.
Feeling something.
You'll be changed. You'll be
So
changed
many
in
different
some way.
emotions. Yeah, I think Closer is definitely one that a lot of people overlook. V for Vendetta, of course. That was a big one because I think that was like when she shaved her head, and so it was like a dramatic look for her.
Right, I never did see that one.
It's a good movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
forgot.
Hugo Weaving is a fucking fantastic actor, and for once, he actually plays not the villain. He's the
Hugo
hero.
Weaving.
Yeah.
It's not ringing a bell. What's he
Oh,
in?
he's Agent Smith from The Matrix.
Oh wow. Oh okay. Okay.
But yeah, going back to Natalie, she was also in Black Swan, fucking trippy ass movie.
Also haven't seen that one. I need to
Yeah, definitely go see that. That's a good one. I
Okay.
think another sleeper. Brenda and I actually own this one, and I think it's fucking hilarious. It's a stoner flick. Your Highness. Have you heard of that one?
What? Your
Danny
Highness.
McBride and James Franco alongside Natalie Portman.
No,
Dude,
what? No,
like
that sounds
those two,
funny. Danny
Danny
McBride
McBride
is
and James Franco, they fucking play so well off of each other. But so think of a stoner flick, but like in a high fantasy setting. It's hilarious.
Okay, okay. Interesting.
And then, speaking of great actors,
Oh
fucking
gosh.
Gary Oldman, man, as Norman Stansfield.
Oh my
Let's be real, the
gosh.
guy needs no introduction.
Genius. Genius. The man is a genius.
And in my opinion, one of the best actors I've ever seen, like to date.
Hands down. Hands down. Guy's amazing.
Very versatile himself, yeah, for sure.
Very versatile, and so, we'll probably get into this later. Just his ad libbing.
Oh, there's a scene that we are going to have to elaborate on, and you know which one I'm talking about. We're gonna
Oh,
get
of
to that
course,
one.
I'm alluding to it myself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but his performance. You think about a movie, and when I was in high school, I read this book by Robert McKee called Story. Anybody listening to this perhaps may have already heard of. At the time, it had just been released when I was in high school, but basically, it was a screenwriting book. It was written by this Robert McKee. What he said in it made so much sense to me, but a movie is only as good as its villain. A movie's only as good as its villain. It has to be challenging for the protagonist to overcome the antagonist, and to the extent that it succeeds in that regard, think of Dark Knight, right? It'll make or break the movie. If you make him too charismatic, like say another movie that I think we've talked about doing as well, Cyberpunk,
Blade Runner.
Harrison Ford, Blade Runner, precisely, Blade Runner. You make them too charismatic, you make them too, the antagonist, yeah, if you make them too charismatic, then it kind of swings the other way, and you kind of are like, well, who should I be rooting for? Because it's tough. Rutger Hauer has an amazing performance in that movie. But as I was saying, Gary Oldman is such a fucking badass bad guy in this movie. Unlike, I'm just, wow.
You love to hate him in this movie.
You do. He's got one of those roles, and yet he's charming, and that's the craziest shit about it too. You see him at the beginning when you first are introduced to him. He comes into the room and he just starts throwing his weight around, but he's
kind of a creep too. But like you're still, you can't help but be captivated by his performance.
Right. He does this merciless thing at the very beginning of the movie, and afterwards is just so calm about it.
Speaking of the beginning of the movie, dude, the opening scene of The Professional, I love the way that they did this because they're slowly introducing the title character. So all you see is just this conversation happening right at this table. Someone's smoking a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has like a glass of milk, and then they're like discussing business. And you just see like a super close up of like his sunglasses, you know, and you can see the reflection and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He downs the milk and he like slams it, and he's just like, all right, I'm gonna go take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're just kind of thinking like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, this guy's drinking milk and he's supposed to be some badass. Okay, we'll see how badass he actually is. Right. And then the slow reveal, this is almost kind of reminiscent of like a Batman movie where the lights go out and then people are like getting creeped out, and they're getting picked off, you know, like in the hallways.
Yeah,
you just see like an arm pop up and he like pulls the guy over the railing and he like plummets to his death, and this other guy gets like strung up, like he gets hanged with like a wire and
piano,
and this whole time you have no idea who this Leon guy is. He's just like taking out guys effortlessly.
After just downing that milk.
And the main bad guy dude, the big guy, he's all freaking out, he's losing his shit. And there's like even that point where they have this protective screen, this like metal sheet that covers the window, and they just start like blasting through it. And after they're done shooting, you see the silhouette kind of walk by, and then it's like Leon's like peeking through one of the bullet holes, and so they're like, oh shit.
Gosh, yeah.
I even love the way that they did the part where the fat guy, he's trying to call the police, right? And they place him on hold, and then like you just see like that knife like stick out of the shadows and like just position under his neck.
Yeah,
his face like peeks out of the shadow. Gosh. I love it.
Behind, right, exactly, just over his shoulder.
I loved everything about the opening. It was fucking perfect.
Electric. Oh, dude, absolutely.
And all he wanted to do, he just wanted to talk to him. He makes him hang up the phone, and this is a foreshadowing as well, because he holds a piece of paper and he's like, dial this. And so he dials the number and he talks to the guy that Leon was discussing business with, that you don't know either. Basically says like, hey, what is it? Like, you're interfering with my business, right? Like, we can't be having you on my turf. Leon basically intimidates him into leaving town immediately and never coming back. I like it too because it's like a nice combination of mystery but action at the same time, and it's not over the top action. This isn't like Michael Bay stuff. This is subtle, like, you know, he's taking guys out efficiently. He's not going in there guns blazing. Like, it's not like the Matrix scene, you know, in the lobby where he's just like mowing everyone down. Now that you know who Leon is, what he looks like, you see what he's like outside of the job. And so Leon is actually, he's very much a stoic man living in Little Italy, a broke down apartment in New York City. And, you know, he reelects his milk. Like he's coming back from the grocery store, and he even has like milk, you know, in his grocery bag and everything. And we find out that he's, in quotes, a cleaner. It's like a slang term for a hitman. He works for the Italian restaurant owner, Tony. And then this is the same time that we are introduced to Matilda. And, you know, she's the lonely 12-year-old who lives in the same apartment building as Leon. And we find out that she has a highly dysfunctional family. they kind of know each other. They almost have this rapport where they don't really speak to each other, but they like
Hmm.
acknowledge each other.
Right. She's like, I think when he sees her this time, when we see them interact for the first time, she's smoking a cigarette.
Hmm.
Right. She's sitting on her legs are dangling off of the of that floor landing or whatever.
Mm. Even just that first scene, it kind of shows you what her character is about, because it shows that she's a little rebellious, and you
Yeah.
don't really know why. Like, you're just kind of like, oh, is she kind of like a troublemaker? But she actually tries to hide the cigarette, when she sees Leon walk up. So I wonder if
Right.
she thinks that
Right.
he's going to tell on her, or if she I don't know, maybe she's impress him. Like, her real self is smoking the cigarette, but when he walks up, she's just like, oh wait, I gotta be on my best behavior type of thing.
Right. She doesn't want him to see that.
Hmm. And obviously, he's not dumb. He sees it, but he doesn't really interact with anyone. He just minds his own business. So yeah, he's just like, I'm not gonna say anything. Not my daughter, not my friend. I'm just going to my apartment.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Right.
Man, so we are introduced to Matilda's family now. So we kind of see a little bit of what Leon's about, and now we're gonna see what Matilda's about. She has a pretty fucked up family. They all treat her like shit. It's actually pretty sad. So I
Right.
think the
Right.
only one that's really physically abusive is the dad, but I think the sister is emotionally abusive.
Right. The one who's like working out in her bedroom and all that. Hmm.
Yeah. I wonder if that is that her full sister, or is that like a
I
half
don't
sister? I
remember.
don't,
Yeah, they don't look very
because the
similar.
mom is her stepmom, from my
Right.
understanding.
Okay. So that could be it.
But the thing is, it's important to note that she has a younger brother. So I think the sister and the young brother, they kind of look similar. So I think they might be full. And then Matilda is kind of like the middle child, like the black sheep, and she definitely stands out. But she has a very different relationship with her younger brother than she does with her older sister.
Hmm.
So she's very protective and loving of her younger brother, and her brother loves her back. He's not a little asshole.
Yeah.
Like,
He's a sweet little
I,
boy.
yeah, it seems like they have a cool relationship. We find out that the father is kind of in some shady ass shit going on, so he's kind of involved in drugs, and he works for this sketchy looking group of individuals who we don't really know a lot about yet, but we know that they mean bad business. Like, they're not there to have a good time. They're there to threaten him, and they have this hunch that we gave you a certain amount of cocaine, and when you gave it back to us, it was a different amount. So where's the rest of it?
Right.
The
Well,
dad swears that he gave him everything, and they keep accusing him of stealing.
but I think the audience, I think we as audience members, don't we also haven't we been clued in as well? I think he there's dialogue going on as she's walking through the apartment. There's yelling when she was outside with the cigarette and she sees Leon pass by. There's arguing between her parents and all sorts of commotion. But when she comes in and she's kind of going through the rooms, I think you're overhearing her dad say to the mom that he had actually shaved some, and I don't know if she was concerned. I forget whether she was concerned or not, but I just remember that I think he had admitted it. So then when the scene's happening, you're going, oh shit, he's been outed. He thought he was so smart. He thought he was so smart. He was going to make more profit off of this.
The sketchy individuals that are asking for the drugs back, they're led by a sharply dressed and, quite frankly, strange Norman Stansfield. He has his AirPods in. He has his earbuds in, and he's listening to music,
Oh right, like a Walkman back in the day. Yeah, the legit
and he's
Walkman.
kind of just letting his lieutenant, kind of like conduct the business. They actually step outside away from the family so they can conduct business, and that's where they're accusing the dad of stealing the drugs. So yeah, now we're introduced to Stansfield, and this guy's fucking weird because he's like sniffing the dad, and he's like all up in his face.
Right.
He's in his personal space, and he looks way different and acts different from the rest of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're already kind of an eccentric bunch, but Stansfield, I don't know, he's really out there. He's really quirky in his own right.
He is.
He's very expressive with his face, of course. And yeah, they basically tell him, all right, well, we don't believe you, so you have until this time tomorrow to get us the rest of the drugs,
That's right.
or else.
That's right.
But unfortunately for them, it seems like the dad kind of calls their bluff. And yeah, it doesn't go well. So yeah, the next day, I think now, as Leon's coming back to his apartment, he sees that Matilda's in the hallway again, kind of in this similar spot, but now she has a black eye. Does she have a black eye? She has like a bloody nose. Yeah, so he gives her a little handkerchief to kind of wipe her nose, and she's just like, man, is life always this shitty? And Leon's just like, yeah. Like, doesn't even try to sugarcoat it. He's just like, yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, chin up, kid. It's only gonna get worse.
Mm-hmm.
What's actually cool about this is Matilda offers to buy Leon milk because she's getting ready to go downstairs to the grocery store, the little corner market. She offers to buy Leon milk, as he's walking to his apartment, and it shows two things. It shows a sign of gratitude, like she's thankful for him giving her the handkerchief so she can kind of clean herself up,
Mm-hmm.
but it also shows that she studies him as he walks by. Like she looks at, she has interest in what kind of shit he gets from the grocery store, and she
Mm-hmm.
always notices the milk kind of sticking up at the top, and so she actually knows a little something about him just from observing him, not even really like talking to him.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. She's observant.
He actually takes her up on the offer. I was expecting him to just be like, nah, I'm good. And so, she's actually kind of giddy. Like, she's like, oh, cool, I
Yeah.
made a friend.
Yeah.
And so she's like skipping down the stairs to go get the groceries. As she goes downstairs, the elevator door opens up and those fucking like goons walk out again.
Yeah.
And like the music changes too. Like the whole atmosphere changes at that moment. Some bad shit's about to go down.
Right.
You feel it in your gut. This is a pretty tense scene because they actually show up a little early. So they said until noon the next day, and I believe that they showed up a little bit before, and they just kick down the door and like start blasting fools. Like they don't even try to say like, hey, do you have the drugs yet?
Right.
Like I think they already knew in their mind what they were gonna do.
Right. I mean, well, if he were really, he would have come to them. I don't know if he were wise, he would have gone to them and given it to them. And I guess the assumption is since he didn't find a way to get it to them before, that's how I could see it as well. I could see it also the same way. Like they're just like, fuck it, we're just gonna kill this guy, annihilate him and his family, anybody that could possibly,
Do you think there's a chance that if he had given it back, would they have still killed him, or do you think maybe they would have just killed him and not the family?
Hard to say. I think they would have all been killed anyway because he likes to keep things clean. Stansfield rather. Yeah, Stansfield. He would Norman Stansfield. That's right. He would have. I think he just didn't want that to come into play. Ever have somebody try to retaliate against him. So it might. I think he would still have killed them anyway. So maybe you're damned if you do, damned if you don't situation.
And like how you were saying before, he's almost like orchestrating. So he goes in first. I think Stansfield is like almost single-handedly taking out the entire family, but he's purposely saving the dad for last. He's almost like he wants to draw this out as much as possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He wants to see his family get massacred before he gets taken out.
Right, right.
There are two very memorable parts to this massacre. So what did you think of that bathtub kill? I love the cinematography of this. It's like that top down, and then they like kick the bathroom door open, and they just like blah, like shotgun blast, and you see the foam,
right, and it's just
the like pink foam like fly up.
Yes.
The water's like leaking out the back because it like breaks the porcelain or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that was a great shot. Yeah, just poof, just
you see that Matilda's dad. He's just like frozen in the corner of the living room, and then the transition from the kitchen to the living room, you see Stansfield walk through, and he's just like parts it with his hands, like so elegantly.
Yeah.
And I fucking love that scene.
Yeah,
those little beads hanging down, and he like fucking sticks his hands through and like parts the Red Sea with his hands, essentially. And it's just like so obnoxious, but the way that Gary Oldman does that part, that's fucking perfect.
Yeah, exactly. That charisma again, just
because it shows that he's having fun with it. He's having a good time, and he's just like playing around.
Hey, because ultimately this guy did it to himself in his mind's eye. You stole from me.
He got caught with his pants down a little bit because the dad, he was packing some heat. He had like that hidden gun. He tries to shoot Stansfield. I think Stansfield like kind of like leans away, and so his arm gets shot. The dad tries to run, and I think he takes out one of the goons on his way out. But Stansfield, I think he falls down when he gets his arm shot. He like falls on the ground, and so the guy tries to run past him. And then as he's running down the hall, that's when Stansfield caps him in the back.
Right, drops him.
And also the little brother gets killed somewhere in the chaos that's going on. Matilda's done shopping around this time, and so she like returns back home, and there's that guy that's like out front keeping watch, and he's like his eyes are on Matilda as she's walking by, and so she's just trying to like keep her focus straight, but out of the corner of her eye she like peeks through the doorway, and she walks past her apartment, pretending like it's not hers, and she sees her dad's body like face down on the ground, and so she just keeps walking. This scene was fucking so heartbreaking, dude. Like the performance was
Oh, dude.
this was like just the start of what Natalie Portman was about to deliver in this movie,
Yes.
She walks straight to the end of the hallway where Leon's apartment is, and she pretends like she lives there,
Right. So her back is to that goon. Her back is to the guy who was guarding the door.
He's like watching her the entire time, ringing the doorbell, and she's just like pleading like to herself, like, please let me in, please let me in.
Right. And you could see through the peephole, he's looking at her through the peephole, and you could see the tears in her eyes, and you could hear the tremble in her voice. As tough as a little girl as she was and badass with her smoking the cigarette, here she is like just scared for her life and hoping that he'll help her, extend a lifeline to her.
First seeing this movie, man, that scene, I felt so bad for Matilda, that character, her character goes through some shit.
She really does, yeah.
Even though her family was a piece of shit to her, and she was like physically abused and psychologically abused and all that stuff, that was still her family. And outside of that, she has like no one.
That's it.
No one else to turn to. How you're saying she had the street smarts, for her to like pretend like she tries to play it cool and just keep walking, and she didn't even have a plan. I think just instinctually she was just like, just keep walking, just keep walking.
Yeah.
Eventually found herself at the end of the hallway, and she happens to know someone that lives there, and so she's just desperate, she's just hoping like, just let me in, like I don't know what else to do. I can't do anything else, I'm dead unless you let me in.
Right. Meanwhile, I think he knows what's going on. I think he's been hearing the gunfire and all that stuff. So, and he's very observant himself. So he's kind of like, I don't want to get involved in this. It's not as though he went to the door and was like, I don't think I'm going to let her in just because. He knows he sees what's going on. He knows that there's her parents were involved in something, and by letting her in, he's letting that element back. He's letting that element into his life.
If he helps her, then all of a sudden, whatever's going on with her family is like his business now. Eventually, Leon's been kind of seeing shit go down. I think that's why he chooses apartments at the end of the hall, because he likes to have that vantage point. Like, he wants to be able to see down the hallway. He keeps a low profile, and he kind of like spies on people through his peephole just to make sure that he stays on top of what's going on. He doesn't want to get caught with his pants down either. So he eventually lets Matilda in, and I don't even think she doesn't even know what to expect. Like, when she goes in there, like, what does she expect to see? She doesn't even know. She just knows that she wants to get away from whoever murdered her family.
That's it. I don't think she cares much what she's gonna see. It's more just, will she even see anything? Is she gonna live to see that? And yeah, that was a really tense moment. That scene is really, really intense, because you see the urgency. She needs this, but you also understand from his perspective, having seen what kind of life he lives, that he's not necessarily wanting to get involved, and he doesn't have any kids of his own, and all that kind of stuff. It's just he's really this, like you said, stoic man, single man, just living on his own. And you wouldn't blame anybody who, even if they weren't a professional hitman, for questioning whether they should let this person in their house. That was, if this person were observant and also saw this shit and understood that by letting her in, you were also inviting trouble.
Dude, and Leon almost had to pop off on him too, because that guy, that henchman, the lookout, he walks over and pressing his ear up against the door. Leon is trying to like line up the gun to like, if I gotta take this fool out, man, it is what it is. But the thing is, I think Matilda is also kind of on autopilot. Like, she was so traumatized. I don't think she's really thinking rationally. Like, she's just like, I need to distract myself. And so she turns on the TV, and there's like cartoons on. And I thought it was actually kind of cute that something that Matilda was super into was Transformers, like the old school Transformers.
Right.
So she turns on TV and she's like watching Transformers. So that henchman guy is just like, oh, okay, well, maybe she really does live there, because it seems like it's just, a normal family, and they're like just watching TV.
Well, right. And I think that's also why she does it too, because she is, again, street smart. So I think she realizes, to play the part, it would seem suspicious for her to just walk into this apartment and have it be quiet. So the fact that she then turns on the TV makes it seem natural, makes it seem like, oh, this is something. And the fact that it's Transformers, it's a cartoon, really shows that, oh, you'd think this man who answered the door for her isn't going to be just like all giddy looking at cartoons. He didn't look like a goofy kind of person. He's looked like a very serious guy. And the fact that she also sees him holding the gun against the door, lining it up, she's sensing his caution as well with the whole situation.
This showed a lot to Matilda too, because one, I mean, he already had like a gun ready to go, so he was ready to throw down. I think she kind of got the sense of like safety around him. She wasn't scared of the gun. She wasn't scared that he was wielding a gun. She felt like kind of strangely comfortable and safe around Leon, just like right from the get-go.
Right. It does. She understands him in a way, intuitively. She's got this again, that intuition, having only seen him do certain things. I mean, but he's like, while he may have a gun, he's never shown aggression toward her or anything like that. Never given her reason to right. So he may have a gun, but in other words, it's like fighting fire with fire. So he lets her into his apartment, which means she feels safe with that. But in addition to letting her into the apartment, he's not like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? They got guns. And he, like, as if he was one of those people who actually didn't have a gun. The situation is perfect. He's got guns. He can retaliate. He's cool as a cucumber. Exactly. It's methodical. He is methodical.
It actually doesn't take long for Matilda to find out that he's a hitman. I think while he's preoccupied with what's going to happen next, she's kind of like being nosy and digging through some stuff, and she opens that case that's on the dining table, and there's just like a shit ton of guns and like tools and stuff in there. He doesn't like freak out at her. He's just like, hey, don't touch my stuff.
That's right. And then she's got all these questions.
So you have more than one gun.
Right.
Whoa, right. What do you need all these for, and why are they like in the suitcase, for like easy travel? I think she kind of quickly puts two and two together. She's very smart, and she's just like, are you a fucking hitman? And he's straight with her, he's like, yeah, I am. And so now she wants him to teach her everything he knows.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course he's just like, no, you're out of your fucking mind.
Right.
Little girl. What the hell?
Like, he doesn't even know her. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want you to teach me. Like, what the hell? No. And you're like, the shit that he's seen in his life, no doubt. Like, why would he want that for a little girl who's, she may think her life was shitty then, before this had hit the fan, but he is looking at her, putting himself in her shoes in some way, right? And just being like, oh, like, I wouldn't want this for you.
And to go along with the empathy, I don't even know if he ever sleeps in that bed, but he gives her the bed, and he gives her like a little blanket and everything, and he wants to make sure she's comfortable. Yeah, I mean, as comfortable as you can get in a fucking empty ass apartment. There's like nothing warm about that apartment, but
I don't even think they have sheets on the bed, or do they?
No, it's pretty bare bones.
It's a bare mattress. Yeah,
he lets her sleep, and she's actually able to sleep, and so but in the middle of the night, Leon's like in his post, so he's like sleeping in the little like chair
with a pistol
facing
in his
the
lap.
door. Yeah. He is like, man, fuck this, and so he gets up and he puts on the silencer, and he's about to whack Matilda while she's sleeping, but I think he can't do it. Ultimately, he's at his core, he's a softie, so
he would be violating that his one of his values, which is no women, no children. He'd be killing both
kids. Yeah,
she's both a kid and a girl.
Yeah. So it's like, well, if you can't kill her, then what can you do? So he decides to actually put her to work. They're like working out together, like they're like doing sit-ups, and push-ups, and he's showing her how to clean the guns and handle them safely. And
just imagine this. Imagine living this lonely life that he's been living as a hitman, not ever having, only other person he really talks to is Tony. Aside from that, maybe a shopkeeper when he's buying his milk and getting his groceries. And, it's so interesting that you really get to see this tenderness that he has with the plant that they carry around from apartment to apartment when they have to leave. But just how he always makes sure, in the midst of this regimen of working out and cleaning guns, preparing these weapons of death,
instruments of death.
Yes, instruments of death. He is so tender with this plant. It's hard. Let's be real here. It's not easy to keep plants alive. Even the most rugged of indoor plants, there's something about the fact that it's a living thing and you're responsible for it.
And he's very good with that plant. Like, that plant is thriving.
He right, exactly. He takes such good care of that plant. It's not just that he waters it. He makes sure he has a little spray bottle. Of all the things in this bare apartment that he has a little spray bottle, a water bottle. Not little, it's actually, quite large. It's regular size, but he sprays the leaves and he like just it's he wipes each leaf down. It's something precious to him. It's truly his only other friend if you think about it. But then she
True.
comes into his life, and so here's the only other living thing aside from Tony that knows that he does this, that is by his constant companion, is this plant. So then Matilda comes into his life, and he basically lays bare his soul in some sense. He, by letting her in and letting her know that he does this, he's putting himself in obviously a vulnerable position, and so is she. Obviously, she's almost, she could have died if it weren't for him. So she was very vulnerable. No other circumstance would he have ever allowed her to see
not that side of him.
That side of him, precisely. It's his, in essence, it's his like a picture, of Dorian Gray. He's brought her into the inner sanctum, for her own safety's sake. And in doing so, like he just, by him accepting, again, it was this empathy, this is his undoing in some sense, or his what's the word? I can't think of the word. I was going to say sanctification or something, but no, it's something else. It's like his catharsis in some sense. He actually gets to live at a higher level than he's ever lived before, because he's always been in the shadows and everything. But then I guess what I'm trying to get at is the fact that another human being sees this, which is by all other accounts would be scary, would be maybe people
disturbing.
Would be disturbed by it at the very least, and look at him differently. She doesn't. She
doesn't judge him.
She doesn't judge him. She accepts him as he is, and he's never had that before. That's
I
think
a lot
going on there.
I think just inherently he's always felt like maybe he can't have friends because they just won't understand who he is and what he is.
He's been doing this for so long anyway, and he's just established his own habits. He's a single guy. I mean, living on his own is one thing, but then the fact that he's just had to come to accept that living this life, he can't just, first of all, his English is really quite broken anyway. And then, so he's living as a foreigner in
limited education for sure.
Right. Limited education, but he's good at what he does. And he's living in this other country, right? So he is alone. He feels alone. And whether he realized it or not, he really did feel that way. And he was comfortable with it.
We also don't quite know about his backstory either, until later.
Right. So this is quite an interesting encounter. Again, where he gets to be seen for who he is, and accepted, and her as well.
I could see where that's kind of freeing for Leon. He found a friend, an unexpected friend for sure, for both of them, actually.
Mm-hmm. An unexpected friend, right?
When you think of it, the dynamic, you have this little girl hanging out with this grown-ass man, and they're not family, they're not related.
Right.
There's some weird shit going on.
Right, exactly.
They both have like fucked up lives, and they can kind of help each other through the troubles that they're experiencing, and they're very different from each other.
Right. It's very, very different. They're very different from each other. The nature of their relationship is so different as well. It's different than, say, for instance, like with an older man and a girl, like the book Lolita, where he just wants something from this girl. He thinks that that's what life is all about, and that's what he goes after, and he's using the girl for his own needs, or what he perceives as needs. Whereas Leon is trying to take care of her. He really is looking out for her best interests. He doesn't want her to become a hitman like him, and he's just trying to protect her. He didn't even really know what he was. I mean, maybe he didn't really know what he was accepting by letting her in. There's a lot there, and I think he just defaulted to, can't let this girl die.
You know what's funny too? Leon is not equipped to be able to take care of a child at all. Right. And he's trying some stuff, and it's weird, but it's kind of working, because he busts out. He sees that she's like really sad about her family, and so he's like, "Have you met?" I forgot what he calls the character.
Right, the
the
sock
little
puppet.
piggy. Yeah, and so he's just like, oh, I have a pig. Yeah, and she's like, no, I did not see a pig in this apartment. He's just like, I'll go get him. You wait right here. Super corny, but it's charming, and I think she appreciates the effort that he's making to try and cheer her up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's when she's just like, so what's your name? And he's like, Leon, and she's like, cute name. And he chokes on the milk because he's taking a swig, and he's just,
Right, right.
dude, she's like gazing into his eyes, and she's like in
She
a
looked
trance.
right, right, exactly. And she's at that age where it's like, did you ever see the movie The Man in the Moon with Reese Witherspoon?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's like I think it's her first movie. She's around 13 as well, and I bring it up because she'd never really been into boys before, but then she falls in love. She's again that same age. She's 13. She's an adolescent, and she's again never been in love. Boys are whatever, got cooties kind of thing. And then her older sister starts dating this guy, and he's really charming, really nice person actually, and she falls in love with him. Point is, they're at that age where that's her first love is her sister's boyfriend, and in this situation, her first love is this guy who's taking
Much
care of her.
older.
Much older, exactly, much older.
Do you think in some ways too, what's contributing to this? Do you think it's possible that maybe she just has like daddy issues? Because obviously she had a fucked up relationship with her dad.
Yeah, no, of course. I think that's also what contributes to it. She's never really had somebody who gave her the kind of attention he's giving her. She's had to really fend for herself, which is why she is so street smart, because no one else was looking out for her. Not the same. She had to do it for herself. So
Sure.
yeah, everyone else had their own problems, and her dad and her mom, and so she was just kind of cast aside.
He was never much of a dad.
Right. He was never much of a dad. Exactly. So now she has somebody who's treating her with care, treating and making sure that she's okay, and
showing that compassion, that like her dad never had. Actually, he's like literally quite the opposite of her dad, because her dad was a coward. Like he was willing to put his family's safety at risk for money, I guess. And
yeah,
he didn't make her feel safe or confident. He beat her.
Oh, right. Oh, right. Hence the bloody nose and everything.
Black eye, yeah.
Black eye, bloody nose. Yeah, and she's super sharp, and so she can say really pointed things as well that can get to him, because he's
get her in trouble.
Because like you said, well, because he's weak. Because I mean, damn, like think about that, like the bitterness of being the child of this guy and being neglected. What anger she must have had and toward him, and just the negligence on their part as parents toward her and all that. So again, just that's who's now looking into Leon's eyes. And though she is as street smart as she is, it's funny that hearing you talk about this now, I hadn't really thought about that before, all these things before, but her looking into his eyes, of course, yeah, she's starting to have these feelings. Cute name.
Yeah.
But it seems so unexpected that somebody so sharp would think that, and then but here he's doing these cheesy things, and she appreciates
and she's like, she's smitten.
She sees the intention behind what he's doing, and the intention is simply, even though it's cheesy and it's not so much like, oh, I want you to really laugh at this, his deep down intention is, I just want you to be okay. I don't want you to be sad.
He's trying his best,
Yeah, that's all. And she appreciates that.
It's funny too, because he quickly like drops the act. He uses that glove to like pick up the glass of milk.
Yeah. Like this character is now like, he just gave up the character entirely. Right. It's now biting his milk glass and feeding him. Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
So as Matilda progresses in her training, he eventually moves her up to a sniper rifle, and he explains the fact that this is the reason why you start off with a sniper rifle, is because you get to keep a big distance between you and the target. So there's no chance of them really retaliating, at least not in the sense where you can't get away in time. Right. It kind of makes sense, because he's saying that as you get more skilled and more comfortable with taking people out, you can get closer to them. And so the knife is like the last thing you learn how to use.
Right.
He's like showing her basically like what's like a good spot to position yourself as a sniper.
Don't open the scope. Don't open the cover of the scope until
there's like little steps to it. Yeah. And he's not like going step by step. He's just showing her the entire process, and he's like flying through it because he's an expert at it. But Yeah, he's like piecing this sniper rifle together from the case, and then they're like, "All right, you ready? Let's go." And so they have like a little blanket and everything because you want to be somewhat comfortable. You're gonna be up there for a while, I imagine,
Mm-hmm.
in most cases. And she's like immediately trying to look through the scope, and I don't know. I just thought this whole scene was pretty interesting. What was your take on that whole like sniper training?
Thinking about it's just different. Thinking about it when I saw it though as a kid, I was excited. I was like, "Oh, that's cool!" Like I would, "Oh, how cool would it be to learn how to do that?" You know, I wasn't going, "Oh, this is dangerous. Oh, that's crazy. That's scary," especially as a boy. I was like,
Killing is cool.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, sniper rifle. Oh, that's a big old gun. Yeah." So, anyway, I just appreciated how she was fearless about approaching this.
I like how they frame this too because they make it seem like this is a real gun, or it might be a real gun, but they're not using real bullets. But you don't know that yet, and so you're like, is she really about to just snipe someone right now? Because she's asking like, all right, so who should I target? And he's like, anyone.
He's all right. Anyone, but no women. I think that's when he says, "No women, no children."
The target ends up being like some politician guy or whatever. He's like
Yeah,
taking a
like a
jog
senator
through
or
Central
something. Yeah,
Park.
he's got like his bodyguards all around him, Secret Service or whatever.
Yeah, and he's really pompous because he's got like this really vibrant
Entourage. Oh, right.
like vibrant outfit on. He's like, I want you guys to hang back. I want this to look natural, as he's
Right.
jogging through. That was a pretty damn good shot
That's what I was
for
gonna
her
say.
first time, like she gets him like right in the stomach.
Yeah.
And it's a paintball, right? That
Right.
pegs him like a red one. So it almost looks like blood.
Or something akin to it. Yeah, it happened so fast. I'm not sure what it was. I mean, it could very well have been like a bullet with a something else at the end. You know, like I don't know. I don't know about all these things, but the way it travels, it's different. It just boom and it tags them. Paintballs are trickier.
They wanted to get the point across that it was non-lethal rounds.
Non-lethal, precisely. It's a non-lethal round. He gets tagged. You see the blood. The whatever he is, the government official or whatever, gets tackled by his the bodyguard. He's like, "What the hell?" He's okay, and then he's like, "Whoa, oh!" And then they knock him down, and then it's like,
Oh
okay,
yeah, they're swarming them. Yeah,
then
yeah.
they're on the move. Then they're like,
All right, let's
then
get out of here.
yeah, exactly. Then Leon
You don't
and
want to linger too long. Yeah.
nope, they pack up their stuff and they get the hell out.
So that was pretty cool, like she's learning how to like use the equipment now because she's been cleaning it, and she's kind of like she's getting tired of the workouts. Like I love the fact that she's so fucking done with the sit-ups that she's like, I'm just gonna do like the little like stretches now that like her older sister was doing when she was
Right.
wearing the outfit and everything.
Uh-huh. And it's funny because she was making fun of her before, and now she's like just and it's funny, but also kind of maybe she's trying to, I don't know, tap into even her mindset, the fact that her sister's gone now, even though she was a bitch to her.
Oh, so you think that was almost like a homage? Like she's like, I want to remember her like this, and like she's the one that like she was really into this, so I kind of want to incorporate that myself.
Yeah, I think that there's this trauma there with the family of that she hasn't really like processed with all that, and so it's weird because she's I think she's torn because she knows how badly they treated her, except for her little brother, of course. But she's got these feelings as well for them because although they treated her poorly, um, she still loved them.
Family's family.
They didn't family's family, and they didn't deserve to die that way. And so I think that although you saw her have this interaction with her sister as she after she was doing this whole workout and everything, now she's wearing this and she's doing this kind of thing. And also I think it has something to do with the fact that it was this very feminine way of working out. She saw her sister doing this. Her sister was very body conscious, like trying to attract men or whatever. And I think maybe in some way she was trying to do the same with him,
Oh, interesting.
because she's developing these feelings.
And what's kind of sweet with Matilda and Leon's relationship was the fact that, obviously Leon's having her do a bunch of grunt work and like busy work and stuff like that. But he's also, he's teaching her some pretty important things in the world of cleaning. There's an exchange though, like there's like a barter going on. So in exchange, Matilda, she also runs the errand. So, she continues to do like the grocery shopping. She cleans the apartment, but she teaches Leon how to read and write, and I thought that
Oh,
was pretty fucking
right.
cool.
Right. Isn't that is cool. They play to their strengths though, right? And that I think that's dope that he contributes in his own way to her well-being, and she does for him. And they're like this unit. They're working together, right? So she because she does speak English well, and she is a little, she can be charming,
She's really well spoken for a child. I did
Very,
not
very.
speak that. I don't even speak that well now.
I think that I was very precocious as a child, so I could appreciate how precocious she was as well. It felt like when I was, here I was just a few years younger than her, watching her performance. I remember just thinking, "Wow, there's somebody out there kind of like me." It'd be like more impressive even. I'm like, "Wow, I don't know if I could hold my own talking to strangers the way that she does at that age." But
Well, she had a couple years on you too.
she did, and it was interesting because my mom would bring this up before, but I was able to speak in sentences at quite a young age. I don't know if it was like a little after a year or something like that, and would surprise my parents with that. But um, so there was that precociousness.
Did you kind of aspire to be a little bit like her in some ways? Like, because you saw her acting this way, and you're like, oh, she kind of reminds me of myself in that regard.
Yes, yes, I was definitely inspired by her. Even it's funny because it's just a movie, and it's interesting growing up though, watching so many movies. I've had to unlearn some things because it's not the real world, obviously. But these movies made such an impact on me because they really reached into the emotions, into my emotions. So I had to learn what things were real and what weren't. But having said that, then because movies did inspire me, I had to pick and choose the things. I had to realize what things were helpful and what things were harmful for me. Um, no, she definitely inspired me. See, when that's what I was trying to get at is so I was speaking in full sentences from a very young age, and my dad and my mom were quite sociable. So we would often, especially my dad as a hairstylist, he would introduce us. He'd bring us around to friends' houses and stuff, and so we'd meet all sorts of different people, and we'd hang. He taught us how to have certain manners, and we always wanted to be invited back. That was like the biggest compliment, to be invited back.
Hmm.
And so having said all that, then there came a point where we were working with, so we'd had experiences talking with people who weren't strangers. I mean, they were strangers to us, but not to my dad. So we felt comfortable in their presence. And then when we moved away, we moved up north to Sacramento. Whenever we would see our dad, which I forget how often it was, I think it was maybe once a month, we would fly down. And so we would fly back and forth Southwest Airlines from Northern California to Southern, and we would meet strangers all the time. So I think by then we had already been doing that. But by the time this movie had come out, we had already been kind of doing that. And so this movie did really inspire me to see also that this girl could, I don't know, she could do it so sharply that it wasn't just that she was surviving, like scared, but she could do it in a way where she could get what she wanted.
Yeah, I like the character too, because Matilda, the longer she stays with Leon, she's trying to bring him out of his shell. Now that she's kind of got the wall to be lowered, she's trying to pull him out of the shell, and so she's like, "Let's play a game. All we do is work and this and that." And so
Right.
she's playing dress up, and she's like, pretending to be these celebrities, and he's just like, I don't know who that is."
Yeah.
Obviously he tries and she gets it wrong, and I think he's kind of embarrassed, but like she's like, no, like that was gonna be my next guess. I was gonna say John Wayne. She
Right,
probably has
right.
no fucking idea who John Wayne is.
Hey, Pilgrim. He had the walk down pretty good though.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and so he's just like, this is a stupid game, I don't want to play this. It's funny because she's finally able to really get him to come out of his shell when she pours like water on him, and so he's like chasing her around the apartment. And dude, this scene is so wholesome. I had like the biggest smile on my face watching this. He would like pushes her in the closet, and he's like trying to keep the door shut. She's like, no, and she's like trying
and
to
he's
like
and he's
open
like
it.
using the spray bottle.
Yeah, yeah. Door like collapses. It was
Yeah.
such a wholesome scene, dude.
Oh, it is. It is. Gosh, especially after every fucking thing that they've been through, all that darkness, and for them to have this levity, to have this time where they're not worried like they've been up until then. There's this tension that builds, and then they find, and then Besson like finds a way to alleviate that a little bit.
Hmm.
Like any good music, like a Bach piece, you have this complexity, you have this tension, and then you have the release of that tension, the resolution. So anyway, yeah, to have that moment, yeah, of course, I think that anybody who watches that scene is gonna smile, because I mean it is just so such an endearing, heartwarming, wholesome scene. And I don't don't know. Isn't it funny though, symbolically, that he is spraying her with the spray bottle he uses to take care of that plant that I was mentioning before.
Mm.
She's his little plant. He's taking care of her. He's feeding her, and
She like compares herself to the plant because she's like, you spend so much time taking care of that plant and getting it to grow. You're watering this plant when you should be watering me. Like she specifically says that, like she
Ah.
makes that comparison. So that was interesting.
Yeah, he's not. It's not even like a daughter. It's not, he doesn't see her as that. He just sees her as a friend he needs to take care of.
Sure, yeah. He's kind of doing her a solid, but it gets to this uncomfortable point where she gets them kicked out of an apartment.
Right. I was gonna say.
She goes down to that front desk and she's just like, how I told you he was my dad? Well, he's not my dad. He's my lover. She knows that what she said was inappropriate, but I don't think she expected it to be that serious. Like the following day,
There they are walking.
they knock on his door and he almost like looks at her like, what'd you fucking do?
Which is, and it's interesting that they don't like get him arrested or something like that. They just you gotta go. We kicking you out.
That scene where they're like walking down the street and she's like holding the plant,
Yeah, exactly. And he's just walking.
You can tell he's like super annoyed. Like he's just like,
yeah. She didn't have to do that, but also she's a kid.
At some point too, Matilda even spots Stansfield. So this whole time they haven't ran into them again since the murder of her family. She spots Stansfield and she would recognize him a mile away, and so she's like, oh shit. They get into their car and they drive off, and so Matilda like hops in the cab and she's having them follow. It's funny because he's like, wait, you want me to like run the red lights too? And she gives him like 100. Here's your money, shut the fuck up. I think similar to how she's been kind of like taking matters into her own hands. So she was like announcing to that guy at the front desk that they're lovers and stuff like that. So little by little, I think she's like he is giving her a longer leash, and so she's taking advantage of it. And so she follows Stansfield down to his destination, and it turns out to be the DEA office. Okay, so this is where he works. This is who he is. The audience already knew who Stansfield was because after murdering Matilda's family, they come back to the crime scene and then they're just basically like, yeah, they just started shooting at us and so we had to defend ourselves, and so they totally skew the truth.
Crooked cops.
This is why no one likes cops. This is important to note because now she knows where he works. Put a pin in that. I'm gonna come back to you later. I'll see you later. You never saw the international cut, right? Because I think I was talking to you outside of the podcast. I was asking you which version you saw.
Yeah, I still need to see that. I'm interested in seeing it.
Okay. There's just like, I think, was it like 20 to 30 minutes of extra footage, and it's not, and like what I was telling you earlier, it's not just dumb shit where it shows the entirety of them walking down the hall having like an extended conversation. These are like actual like different scenes that add more weight to the story. The story is already compelling as is, but I feel like these are like the sprinkles on top of the sundae. Like it just adds to it. And without going into detail, like there's like a Russian roulette scene, and Leon even takes Matilda out on an actual hit. The parts that I actually did want to focus more on, like if you ever get around to seeing the international cut, or I think in America it might be called the extended version. I hate how there's so many damn names for the same thing, but yeah, it's the same thing. So just look for the longer version and you'll be able to see these. So in one of the hits, and the reason why I want to bring this up is because it foreshadows later on in the movie. And that's what I didn't like about the fact that these were left off of the theatrical cut, is because this is something that would have given more impact to something later on in the movie. So in one of the hits, they're kind of starting to build this system where he takes her out on a few of them, and what happens is he shows her this technique where he like chews gum. They locate the target's apartment. He takes the gum and he sticks it over the peephole, and so that way they can't see it. It's just like darkness. And so what he does is he knocks on the door and he tells her to like say something just to get him to open the door. And she's like, well, what'd I say? And he's like, anything, just say something, And she's like ad-libbing, so she's like, hey mister, I'm looking for so and so, and I can't find him. I'm lost. And the it's really dark out here, you know, like the hallway lights out. Can you help me? And so he's just like, oh yeah, whatever. And so you know how when he was doing the John Wayne impression, he had the bolt cutters, like he has that giant holster and the
Hmm.
bolt cutters. So this is where you actually see him use the bolt cutters, and I feel like
Oh
you never see him use it in
no.
the actual movie, the theatrical version. So yeah, what he does is he uses that to take out the door chains. So as soon as they
Oh,
crack it,
okay.
he just shoves it in there and he just snaps it and like busts through the door.
Aha.
They do that a couple times. So she's like getting more comfortable with it. Now instead of him placing the gum, like that's like her job now. So she like chews the gum and she places it on the peephole.
Wow.
And then you know, she's like going through her script. Yeah, it's really dark out here. Can you help me? And he's just like, yeah, hold on one sec. And so, you know, she's like standing there in front of the door patiently, and like Leon's kind of like off to the side, you know, with his bolt
Mm.
cutters ready.
Hmm.
But like he's listening, and so he hears a gun cock. He can immediately, just from that sound, he can picture the exact weapon. Like he sees that it's like some sort of like semi-automatic rifle, and so he's like,
Mm.
oh shit. And so he yanks Matilda away from the door, and the guy inside the apartment just starts blasting through the door, you know, like he
Oh.
knows that like it's a ruse.
Right. Right.
Matilda's like freaked out because she almost just died right now,
Right.
and I don't think she quite understood like the dangers that could come with what was happening, you know.
She really didn't.
And
She really
it's not
didn't.
always going to go smooth. And so the guy's just like unloading his magazine until he's empty, and I think he's like in the process of like reloading. And you really see how cool, calm, and collected Leon is in the scene, because he's telling Matilda, like, you know, in situations like this, it can get pretty heated and dangerous, and the longer it goes, the more complicated the situation might get. You need to quickly like squash the shit. Like you need to take care of the situation immediately. So situations like this, I like to use the ring trick. He like pulls the pin of a grenade and he tosses it through like the big hole in the door. He blasts it through. And so he throws the grenade through the door and he like covers Matilda. When it blows up, that grenade just like took the guy out. But then he opens the palm of his hand and you see the pin and the ring, and he's like, that's the
Oh,
ring trick. Man, that would have been way more impactful had that been in the movie.
that's lame that wasn't included in the movie. That's maybe I don't know why, I wonder why it was cut out, but yeah, wow, that's super that's very impactful. Feels weird. It feels like I haven't I feel like I'm
Like you missed like half of the movie.
yeah, this movie yeah, cuz that's just such a makes me appreciate the movie that much more because the famous short story writer Anton Chekhov said, if you ever something basically akin to if you introduce a gun in Act One, you need to bring it out before the end of the third act or something like that. It needs to come out.
Oh,
You have yeah. So if you see a gun, it's foreshadowing. It's going to be used somewhere. Nothing should be introduced.
no new
No
material.
prop, right? No prop should be introduced that isn't going to be used later. So yeah, so the fact that they brought that ring and that you saw it associated with a grenade, you saw this huge explosion. So then you get the satisfaction when you see that ring again and he does a different ring trick. And the line, I'll wait till we get
Oh
to
yeah,
that scene, but
we're
oh
we're
my
getting there. We're
gosh,
getting there.
yeah.
I think we're like more than halfway now. You know, speaking of grenades, I found out the hard way how to accidentally make one at home.
Oh, what the heck? It's called you eat a bunch of you're
Spicy
lactose
food.
intolerant and you drink yeah, exactly. You drink some milk.
The way I accidentally discovered how to make a homemade grenade is by taking an egg. You take a hard-boiled egg
Huh.
and you microwave that shit.
Oh shit.
Have you ever done this before? I had the brilliant idea as a kid. I like hard-boiled eggs, but I want it like a little bit warm. I'm just gonna throw it in for like 30 seconds.
Uh-huh.
The density levels of an egg, they vary greatly, right? With like the white and the
Right.
yolk.
The yolk, right.
So the white is not very dense, but the yolk is very dense. And so what happens is when you microwave it, the pressure builds up inside the yolk.
Oh.
It's just held there.
Oh no.
And then what you do is you bite into it, and as soon as you pierce, so if you take like a little nibble of the egg white, it might
Right.
not be so bad, but as soon as you pierce into the yolk, all that pressure is released and it fucking explodes in your face.
Oh dang.
All the steam comes out, and I like burnt my upper lip by doing this because I didn't know any better. You know, I was in like
Right.
middle school, so I was just like, whatever. I'm just gonna have like a warm hard boiled egg. I'm just in shock. You know, I'm like, what the
Yeah.
fuck
What
just
just
happened?
happened? Yeah. I just did a normal thing.
Never microwave a hard boiled egg.
Dang. Noted.
So yeah, getting back to the movie, I think at some point Leon goes out on a job by himself, and then this is like back on the theatrical version. Matilda takes the opportunity to take matters into her own hands, and so since she knows where Stansfield works, she just fills up a bag of concealable guns, and obviously from Leon's collection, and then she takes a cab out to the DEA office, and she infiltrates the office by pretending to be like a food delivery person.
Right. Right.
But this is the part where her greenness comes into play. Like she's a little wet behind the ears because she sees Stansfield in like the main lobby area of the building just after the metal detectors, and
Right.
she's sitting there staring at him, and it's obvious. Like she's like burning a hole through him. And I think he kind of sees her out of the corner of his eye, but he plays it cool and he just keeps talking, pretending like
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't see it. And then I think what he's doing is he's like concocting a plan. So he's just like, I think that girl is like, she's like targeting me for something. I'm gonna set a trap. So he goes into the men's restroom. She goes in after him, but she doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
a plan. Like she just walks right in, and she's like looking around. It's an empty bathroom, so expertly done. You know, the cinematography. The door to the men's restroom was like left open, and you see it go boom and like slam closed, and
Uh-huh.
Stansfield's like behind the door.
Yep. Yep.
And I remember seeing that the first time, and I was like, "Oh, you're fucked."
Yeah. Exactly. Oh
There's
man.
no way she's getting out of this.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it was I was sweating, I was like I didn't want her to even be there in the first place, but I was like, "Oh, I get it. She's driven. She wants to get her revenge."
What is she gonna do?
Right. I mean, what she does know has always been with him, never by herself. And she's just doesn't anyway, I just wanted things to work out for her. And then when he does that, all my I think the color drained from my face when he slammed that bathroom door shut. I was like, "Oh, damn, she got." I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't want her to get hurt. I didn't want her to die. I was just like, "No."
So he knows that he has her all to himself, and no one's gonna be able to save her. They're in this government building, and no one else is in the restroom. It
Mhm.
doesn't seem like it's a very busy restroom anyway. He has her like kind of cornered and everything, and he's slowly walking up to her, and he wants to get answers. So before he does anything to her, you don't even know what the fuck he's going to do.
Mhm.
On top of that, but like he's getting answers, and she's like a deer in the headlights. Like she is fucking shitting bricks.
As tough as she thought she was,
She
right?
doesn't even know what to do. He thinks that she's like a spy or something. So he's like, "Who are you working for? Who sent you?"
Oh, right. Right.
His signature thing, like he takes that little pill
Pill.
bottle out and he
Uh-huh.
like shakes it, and he like listens right before he pops one.
Uh-huh.
I love the way that Gary Oldman does this part. I don't even know if this was like how he was directed to do it, but I love how his body like contorts as he's like biting into the
Yeah.
capsule.
Right, which you see him do in that scene before is it when he's interrogating the family? It's at the beginning of the movie, either way. And the shot is that's such a beautiful shot too. It's top down, like you said, from the ceiling, and so he's
Oh, and he's
looking
like
up.
looking up at the
He's looking
camera.
up, and he's like, it's cool that they show that he just cracks it open in his teeth like that.
It's
Yeah.
almost like he's like becoming possessed by whatever is in that pill.
Right.
It's almost like a ritual to him because he always
Right.
does the shake first, and he listens to see what's inside, and then he like grits his teeth and like holds the capsule in between his teeth, and then he like slowly punctures it and bites into it.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the effect is almost instantaneous.
Right.
Very disturbing and kind of sinister though. They don't ever explain what it is those pills are, but man, yeah, it's almost like right before he's about to do something heinous.
Yes.
I don't even know if like this is a way of like him to deal with what he's about to do, or this is like what gives him the necessary push to be able to take it that far.
Right.
But either way, it's bad news every time he pops one of those pills.
Right. That, or maybe it's his way of enjoying what he knows he already has to do anyway. So it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to have to do this dirty deed,
Like it's going to enhance the experience.
yeah, it's going to color it for sure. Right.
How ironic is it that the DEA agent is like a fucking big ass drug addict?
Right, right. Yeah.
Luckily for Matilda, though, one of the goons comes in and he kind of interrupts what's about to happen because after he pops it, he's almost like creeping towards her. He tells Stansfield that one of their guys just got killed recently, and they're like, "What?" And so it's assumed that Leon, he went on a job and he took out one of their teammates.
Ah, I see. I see. Because now they're encroaching on Tony's territory. It's all meeting up.
It's starting to hit close to home for both sides because now one of their teammates was just murdered and they have an idea of who it is, but they want to know for sure. So they're like, all right, we're going to go pay a visit to Tony. You guys take this girl upstairs and, squeeze every little drop of information you can out of her. We're going to find out who the fuck she works for and what's going on with her. Stansfield takes a few of his guys and they go to Tony's. Leon gets home and then he sees that Matilda left a note saying like, I went to go take care of this business myself.
Hmm.
This is, I think, what really solidifies his relationship with Matilda, Leon's, because he doesn't think twice. He just heads there immediately after reading that note. And he's almost in like this state of what seems like anger and desperation. He doesn't care about his well-being at all. He doesn't care about the well-being of anyone else other than Matilda. And so he just comes in and he starts fucking capping fools in the DEA office.
Oh my gosh.
He doesn't care who's in his way, honestly. He's a one-man army at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
He finds Matilda and she's upstairs and she's being interrogated and they're unloading her like lunch pail full of guns and they're like,
Right.
what the fuck do you need all these guns for, and who are you? And so Leon storms in, boom, pops both of them immediately, and he's like, all right, let's go.
Right.
Dude, so efficient, right? Like he knows
Yeah.
exactly where they probably took her and snatched her up and they're out and they're taking the cab ride back. Now Stansfield shows up at Tony's restaurant. This is pretty sad because Tony and Leon, they're tight. Like they have that rapport and you get a sense that he's a good friend, but I think in terms of a business partner, not so much. He takes
Mm-hmm.
advantage of Leon and kind of his like lack of education and stuff. So Tony can basically tell him anything and he's gonna believe it because he trusts him because he took care of him at such a young age. I think at some point too, doesn't Leon, this is where Leon reveals to Matilda that he moved over to the States when he was very young and Tony was like the first person to take care of him once he got
Right.
here. He's always been there for him as far as he knew, but yeah.
Mm.
Oh, another thing too is in the extended version, they go into the backstory, like even deeper into Leon's backstory.
Oh.
I feel like not everything needs explaining, but I felt like this actually added to the story. So he was saying that he loved a girl once over in Italy. She loved him, but her parents didn't approve of the relationship. And does any of this sound familiar, or is this the extended version?
I think this does sound this does sound familiar.
Okay, so they may have like cut that part and like placed it somewhere else in the movie.
I see. Okay.
But I guess what happens is that the dad, because he disapproves of the relationship so much, and since the daughter is gonna go against his will and still be with Leon, he kills his own daughter so that way Leon couldn't be with her. And so Leon, in a rage, kills the dad, and before he can be arrested, he flees to the States.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, it's pretty tragic.
Yeah.
His life was just fucked up from the get-go.
So he knows a fucked up life, and he can understand her fucked up life, Matilda's.
The enraged Stansfield confronts Tony, and they don't really show it, but
Right.
they allude to the fact that Tony is like tortured for information.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know that Tony and Leon have some sort of working relationship. So this scene is important because it reveals the fact that Stansfield and his agents, they work with Tony similar to how Leon works with Tony. So I think what they're also alluding to was that Leon unknowingly cleans people for the DEA agents through Tony.
Wow. Right. Right.
And so the people that Leon kind of despises right now, it's kind of weird that he's been working for unknowingly for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Stansfield knows Tony can find Leon. That's where they torture him for his whereabouts. And then, yep, sure enough, they're able to track down Leon's apartment where he currently stays. And, not expecting Tony to rat them out, Leon and Matilda, I feel like they, after Leon saves her from the DEA office,
Right, the clutches.
they lay low, and I think they think that they're safe because no one really knows where they stay, especially because they've been moving around quite a bit. Matilda's gonna do her usual thing. She's gonna go get some groceries. That's where they talk about the special knock, like secret code between the two, and so they reveal it to the audience, where I think it's like knock twice, wait, and then like knock twice again, something like that,
and then once.
And it's very specific. And so on her way back, she's snatched up by some fucking SWAT team looking dudes.
Right.
That shows you that there's like this whole operation that's about to go down.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had to look this up. So these aren't actually like a SWAT team, even though it seems like they do something similar. They're actually the ESU, which stands for Emergency Service Unit. This is like a branch of law enforcement specific to New York City.
Oh.
They almost have like their own division of like an in-house SWAT team.
Wow.
They snatch up Matilda, and they kind of have a hunch. They're like, is there some sort of special code or whatever? Or like, how does he know that's you? She reveals that there's a code, but she gives him a different one. Right. I think that's what's important to know.
So smart. Yeah.
She kind of demonstrates on the wall. It's different from the one that they showed earlier, like moments before.
Mm-hmm.
Man, we're getting into like the climax of the movie. Like, this is like where all hell breaks loose, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a couple guys walk up to the door, and they use that code that Matilda just showed them, and the door opens. So they're like, cool, all right, open sesame, let's go. And so they cautiously creep into the apartment. This fucking scene, man, this is awesome.
Seriously,
this is why Leon does so many sit-ups. You finally get to see this. So door opens, and like 3 people walk in. They're on guard, and they have their guns drawn. The door slams behind them immediately, and then you just hear a bunch of gunshots. Matilda is freaking out because she thinks that they got Leon, so she's just like, no. But what actually happens is the door swings open again slowly, and then those ESU guys are on the ground. And then you see Leon like hang it down from like a bar in front of the doorway, and so he starts capping dudes upside down.
Right, hanging upside down. Such a cool shot. Such a cool scene. With 2 handguns, just two handguns, just boom, 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 boom. They
actually tag Leon right here, so he takes out like 2 or 3 guys, and then the 4th guy I think actually tags him in the shoulder, so he like drops one of the guns, and he closes the door. Oh man, I forgot about this part. I almost forgot about it. And this is the quote that we always bring up, the GIF. They're radioing to Stansfield, who's like on the ground floor, and they're like, sir, we lost some guys, and he's just like, of course, I told you.
He's like, but he says it in such a casual way. Again, he's just
he knew what the result was going to be.
Yeah, I told you.
He gets off the radio, and he turns to his guy that's like next to him, and he's like, bring in everyone.
I think he says like, call the precinct, tell him to send everyone.
Everyone. Fucking iconic.
It's so because what's so interesting about it was iconic, and also it was ad-libbed, which is genius. But he is so calm. That's what's so brilliant about it. He's so calm. I told you. Call I forget what he says. Call the precinct. Tell him to send everyone. And then the guy's like, everyone, and then he turns around, and just from that calm, peaceful demeanor, then just to be like he's lost his shit, like a little kid throwing a tantrum, like read my lips without saying read my lips. He goes, everyone, just like enunciating.
Oh yeah,
all of it, and he's shaking, trembling with rage, and his face is so contorted, and you can see his eyes are bloodshot. It's just all of it is so amazing.
Can't contain the frustration anymore at this point.
That's it, right?
He's fucking had it with this guy,
Right, exactly. He's had it with Leon. This guy keeps outwitting him.
They fucking show up with like a few more trucks, and like several guys pop out. They're lining the stairwell for like 3 floors.
because you hear him say send everyone, and you're like, okay, and then it goes back to the apartment. He's shot everybody. He got tagged, and then we pick up from there after Stansfield told him everyone.
I just wanted to really paint the picture of the scene because, man, this was such a fucking, like, in terms of action movies, this was such a dope action scene. Leon gets the jump on one of the guys, he like peeks around the corner and Leon's already there and he like holds the gun up to his forehead. And so that's when he orders them to let Matilda go. And so he takes that guy hostage, leads him back to the entrance of the apartment, has Matilda go inside, and then he shoots the fire sprinkler just above his doorway. And then he leaves that agent outside and shuts the door. What that does is it creates like the smoke screen with the water, so you can't see past that. The ESU guys are like, fuck this. And so they're like, and they start unloading on him. And they fucking shoot their own guy.
Right, friendly fire.
They can't even see him.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think as they were heading back to the door, that's when Leon tells Matilda to get an axe. And we don't know what that's for until now. So, Leon he's thinking critically. He's normally cool, calm, and collected under pressure, but this is a unique situation. Shit is really hitting the fan, and he needs to get Matilda out of there immediately. He's like, give me the axe, and starts just like hacking at the wall where the fan is. It's revealed that there's like this ventilation shaft that goes vertically through like the center of the building. And I guess it goes all the way to the basement from what it looks like. Picks Matilda up and places her in there. And he's like, all right, let's go. But her being so smart, she's like, wait, you can't fit in here. It's barely big enough for me. She understands that he's just focusing on getting her out of there right now and not himself. This is a tender scene right here, it's so touching because he finally verbalizes how he feels about her. We saw how he felt about her when he stormed that building, reckless abandon, but now it's solidified because he's actually able to verbalize it to her. He's able to face his fear. When I told you I didn't love you, I was lying. Like, I do love you and I need you to be okay. That's all that matters right now. He actually asks her, do you trust me? And she says yes. And he's like, I have a way out. So this is your way out. I have my own way out. He doesn't tell her how he's going to get out, but he's like, I have a plan. So I just need you to trust me. And so she's like, okay.
But she's saying it like tearfully. It's like, God, it's one of the most gut-wrenching scenes. I cried at that scene. I did cry when I was a kid. I remember seeing it and just seeing it's so tender, because even as she's going, as she's descending down, she's still looking him in the eyes and he's looking at her, and she's got the plant, and I think she's got like a little bunny or something like that. And
oh yeah, that was her brother's, I think.
That's right. So she's going down, and then
Natalie's so good at the crying scenes, you really feel it.
Heartrending, dude. Just truly, just my heart was just torn in two. But and you feel it too when he just lets it out and he's like, and it's that really interesting shot where it's kind of shot a little bit under, it's just a shot underneath his chin, and you see his eyes are wet and they're red, and he's just raging, just all of this. In a way, it's almost his Stansfield moment where Stansfield's like, everyone, it's like he's reached his frustration point now too, with loving her and wanting to take care of her and feeling frustrated and knowing he's in a really shitty situation, just stymied. Like he's gotta, it's a lot.
I mean, at this point, I think the audience is supposed to think like, yeah, Leon is fucked right now. Like, there's no way he's getting out.
I felt like he was. I was like, this is just his swan song. This is just his moment to lie to her, almost. They've now arrived at this point where he's got to continue to save her. That was his choice. Oh, it's such a good, God dang, that movie's so freaking good.
We're not even at the end yet, like we're almost there. So Leon's like going Super Saiyan.
Right.
I think that's where I kind of felt like this was Leon's last stand, because it has that like close up and he's just like letting all of his emotions out. And then the ESU, what do? They get desperate and they fucking bring out an RPG and like blow the fucking apartment up.
Exactly, because they even tried sniping him from a adjacent building or a building across the way, right? So they could see their lasers going in, and he's telling her to hug the bottom of the windowsill, like just to crawl along the floor. And so they've tried everything. They can't get close because he's killed them all when they've tried. They don't want to risk life, it seems, by bum rushing him either. So they decide to soften him a little, either kill him or soften him and knock him out or whatever, and then enter after shooting that RPG into the room in an apartment in New York. What the?
Yeah. I don't even think
What the
they
fuck?
cared about the safety of any of the other residents. Like, for all they know,
Right.
the natural thing for them to do is like, hey, if they hear a bunch of gunshots outside, we're just gonna lock the door and like hunker down and hope for the best. So yeah, after they blow up the fucking apartment, ESU, they do a sweep of the apartment, and
There's smoke everywhere. Dead bodies.
that's the thing, they can't find Leon, but they found one of their own guys alive, and so they're like, all right, cool, let's get him out of here. And so yeah, they pick him up and they take him down a couple floors, and the medics kind of checking him out,
Right. He's got gas mask on and everything.
and he takes the mask off. It's Leon, that
Mhm.
smart SOB.
Yeah, seriously. And he goes, and he says, "Hey, could I put the mask back on? It helps me to breathe better because that it does have oxygen being funneled in there."
Oh, that's true, yeah. And it helps conceal his identity.
Precisely.
The only thing is, unfortunately for Leon, Stansfield had spotted him from down the hall. So,
Right.
and again, Stansfield's so cunning because he's like
Yeah.
concocting a plan. So he's like, I'm gonna set a trap. So Leon puts the gas mask back on, and he's like walking down the stairs. And it's funny because the guys are like giving him like thumbs up and like props and stuff.
Well, because they don't know, and because Stansfield wants to keep this all a secret, he tells them all just to clear that little
Alleyway, right?
well, it was like a corridor. It was like this whole it was like the lobby. It's a lobby.
You actually think like Leon's gonna fucking do this, like
Right.
that crazy son of a bitch. He did it.
Literally light at the end of the tunnel. He sees it, and you could just it's just so fucked up, dude. It's such a fucked up thing because it's like he lets him get a taste of
He was
the
almost
thought
there.
that he could get away. Right.
He's a sick motherfucker, dude.
He is a sick motherfucker.
Everything's a
Dude.
game to him,
It
Like
is,
he wants
right.
he wanted to one up Leon at least once, and so he finally does at the very end.
There he does, and then he just trails him, and so you see, it's a beautiful. Gosh, Luc Besson, this is such a brilliant scene. Oh my gosh, you have the music. It's just one piano. It's just the piano playing, um, and then Stansfield sweeps behind. You can't hear you can't even hear the sound of the footsteps. It's just you hear the piano playing,
That's it.
almost as though it's like this. Almost as though in his head it's like this joyful tune. It's like this is him. Gosh, I read this quote. I wish I had the book on me now, but it's from this book called Only the Lover Sings by Yusef Pieper, this philosopher, and in it he talks about music. And I mention this because he says, like, I think he says something akin to music is the expression of the inner existential the inner existential soul, something like that.
Interesting.
I'm
It's like
totally
a
butchering it.
representation.
Yeah, exactly. So to hear this music, like we're getting this expression directly to our
And it's also misleading.
hearts, right? Exactly. So to cut off any undue noise of footsteps, of breathing, of equipment that he's got on still because he's dressed like an ESU agent, and you just see the joy on his face.
And you can't help but wonder, like, what's going through his head right now. And
Right.
he's like, I did it, like, I'm going to rendezvous with Matilda. I got her out safely. I got out safely, and we did this.
Right. We got through this. We're both safe. Like, who knows what comes next, right? He's not, I don't know what kind of plan he has next. Maybe he'll talk to Tony. I don't know. Who knows? But at the very least, he's just thinking, we did this. I got out when I didn't even think I could, and I'm going to get to see Matilda again.
He let his guard down for 1 second, and that was the one mistake that he made in the movie.
And he wouldn't have let his guard down, nor would, oh, yeah, exactly. He wouldn't have let his guard down had he seen other people around. And then, well, then Stansfield wouldn't have been able to get away with what he did as a police officer without putting somebody through, without arresting somebody. He then just comes up from behind.
He's like stalking him, right?
He's stalking him quietly, but with a gun trained on the back of his head, on the back of Leon's head, just pointing it at him.
Did you notice the juxtaposition too? He almost has like the signature outfit that he wears. As soon as he slips out from the shadows, you immediately recognize it.
You're just like, you son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. Because you realize it's all clear too, and you just think the same thing. You think the same fucking thing. You're like, yeah. Because he didn't tell them why he wanted the whole corridor cleared or whatever.
And how awesome was that cinematography right here?
Oh, it's true. Exactly. And the piano, exactly the piece how it's just like this hopeful tune, and then you see the flash
It's like the first person perspective.
right from Leon's, and then you just see the flash on the walls in front of him, and then there's you start to see him. The camera starts to slowly descend to
It's
the
like crumbling down.
it gets kind of wobbly, and then it kind of descends to the right side, and then you hear there's these like little twinkling keys, just like as if he's descending, bum 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 bum. And it felt so appropriate for the song that had been playing too. But it's just like it was like here was this hope that was building even with the music, and then to just feel it, what was building just completely get that let out.
Fucking awesome by the composer as well, of whoever
Oh
did
yeah,
that music.
all the music, all of this. Again, the movie is just the whole is greater than the sum of its parts for sure. So yeah, so there they are. So the cinematography, again, that cinematography, yeah,
Interesting shot, because this is the only time it does that first person perspective, and then our biggest fear is
realized.
confirmed. Yeah, it's realized because yeah, you see it does the third person view again, and then Leon rolls over and you see the blood coming out of his mouth and everything, and he's like on his last leg here, and Stansfield is kind of like admiring his work, standing
Mm-hmm.
over him. He's just like, I fucking got you, you piece of shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In his last moments, his dying breath, Leon wanted to confirm something. So he's like, you must be Stansfield. And he's just like, sure am, buddy. And so that's when he gives him a present.
Right.
Puts something in his hand. He's like, this is from Matilda.
Well, he holds it too in his trembling, dying hand. He presses it into his palm, and it's almost like awkward. He's like really pressing it in there, and Stanfield almost like, I don't remember. I think it's like he does something with his eyebrows, kind of like, what the hell? like I beat you. Why are you holding my hand still? I'm your enemy, and you're holding my hand.
And like the prolonged, dude, I fucking love this shit. So like this whole time you can't wait to see what's in his hand. You're like, what the
Right.
fuck did he give him? You know, why is this scene so long?
Right, and he's just struggling to get these words out. This is from Matilda.
Matilda. He turns his hand over and slowly opens the palm out, and it's the fucking ring trick, but
The
which
ring
they
trick.
didn't explain, but it's the fucking ring trick. And so he
Right.
recognizes it's the pin in the ring, and so he's like, wait, no.
Well, he like unzips his vest, right?
And he's just like strapped to the fucking gills with grenades. And
Grenades.
yep, he has that look of like, ah, shit.
Exactly. I think he even
got me.
says that.
Checkmate.
Yep. He's like, ah, shit. And then
Yep.
boom, just blows out. I thought that shot was great too, from like that street on New York. Like, it looks like they're across the street from Central Park or something, but then you just see it just push out. You see all
That
this
plume.
debris just poof, that plume, exactly, just one pin for all those grenades. That was crazy.
That was like his ace in the hole. Like he always had that in his back pocket.
Right.
He always hoped he never had to use that, but
Right.
it was there just in case. And that's why I was saying, like in his final moments, like this shows you Leon's character. In the end, before he died, he wanted to make sure that he did right by Matilda, and that he got back at Stansfield for her. And so he confirmed, he's like, are you Stansfield? And as soon as he confirmed it, he's just like, cool, you know, this is for you. He got him. Even it was a bittersweet ending, but man, it was satisfying.
Truly bittersweet. Yeah, man. I mean, it could end there, but you get to see a little bit of it's sort of an epilogue. You see her go to Tony. They're heartbroken. Tony says he's got money for her, and you can just see the guilt on his face. He knows he did wrong by him all his life, and that, he's dead now and can't make it right. So he says she'll always be taken care of. But then she's like, I want to clean.
Oh yeah,
right. I want to clean. And then Tony's like, it's over. He gets just totally emotional and yells at her, and she winces, and she breaks down crying, because it's almost
he's like, I don't have work for a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah. Live a life of a kid. Be a kid. But then she ends up at that sort of orphanage.
Yeah, she goes back to that school that she got kicked out of.
Oh, that's what it is.
It was a school for troubled teens, I think, is what it was. And she just like would ditch, and she stopped going. So that's when she answers like early on, and they call and say like, hey, we haven't seen Matilda in quite some time. And she was like, she's dead. And just like slams the phone.
Damn.
They were reluctant to take her back, and I think it was because she was problematic before. I get the
Mm.
sense that she was kind of a troublemaker, and so they were almost relieved to get rid of her. But she's kind of begging them to come back, and then they're like, "Listen, we are tired of all the lies. Like, we don't even know who you really are. Just tell us the truth." She straight up tells the truth, but I don't think I don't think they actually believe her. I think they almost feel sad for her that she, at least in my opinion, I feel like they think that she's still continuing to come up with this
Pathological
big
lies, maybe.
lie.
Hmm.
At least she gets back in, but yeah, it's actually funny because the audience obviously knows that she's telling the full truth, but summarizing the plot of the movie is pretty ridiculous, out of context.
Which is maybe why she is willing to reveal it like that as well, so that it's like you're not going to even believe it. So if I tell you, you're going to still think I'm lying because it's so elaborate. So it's like, yeah, I'll show you my hand, and you're still not going to believe me. That's what makes it so funny too.
How'd you interpret the whole like plant scene at the very end? Like the very end of the movie, because she was giving Leon a lot of shit for that plant because she was like, "So you keep in this pot, but it's never going to be able to grow out its roots. Like it's always just going to be stifled."
Hmm.
And so I think didn't they come up with like some sort of plan that they would eventually want to plant it somewhere and
Yeah,
let it grow its roots? And so she actually kind of fulfills that promise.
right, exactly. And I think that that's it's a piece of him. It's a piece of them from them being together, and in a way, it's like a the embodiment of their love. They preserved it. They cared for it during the time that they were. It's symbolic, right? So they took care of it. She took, and then she picked up the mantle. He passed the baton on to her, basically, and she continued to take care of it. And the fact that now it will endure, it will live on, even maybe long after she's gone too.
Possibly.
While they're alive, while she's alive, she can always go back and visit it, even when she's grown up and everything.
It's
It'll
kind
be
of
there.
sad, right? When you live this lonely life, there isn't much. There aren't photos. There's nothing like you're not gonna have this like proper burial. There's
Hmm.
nothing really to even prove that this man was real, that this relationship was real, and that's kind of what that plant is. She has nothing of him, and
Hmm.
so at least this is tangible. Like this is something she can actually go back to, and I don't know,
Right.
maybe if she feels the need to, she can actually talk to it like she would be talking to Leon.
Right. And then you have that Sting song come in that I sent you, that they had been he did like a tiny desk concert at NPR. It's what, at least what it looks like, and he did that song, "Shape of My Heart," I think is what it's called. And I never forgot that. As credits start to roll, they do like that crane shot and they pull away, and you see that she's planting the plant, or she's kneeling there at the plant, and it's pulling away into the trees, and it's just getting further away from her. You have this song with those those beautiful strings, right? It's like the nylon string guitar. Dun, 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 dun. It's just so, I don't even know the key signature it's in, but it's feel obviously a minor key. It feels sad, you know. He deals the cards as a meditation. It's just it's so good.
That is a wrap, folks. If you made
Yeah.
it to the end of our podcast, then you are now a certified cleaner. Any final thoughts or closing comments?
I would say that to anybody listening to this podcast who has not yet seen the movie, and now we've given all these spoilers or whatever, I would just say, yeah, to keep an open mind, open heart, and just be willing to sit with the complexity of this movie, without any definitive black or white answer, but to live in sort of this gray, and to be willing to do that. If you are, then you will appreciate this movie for what it is.
How do you feel the movie has aged?
I feel it's aged very well. There's a there is more than a tinge of nostalgia in the movie, and I do mean that in all that it implies, because it reminds me so much of when I was young. It reminds me of that era of the '90s when this movie was made, because it wasn't like a period piece. It was of the now. It was of that time, and so seeing the way that people dressed, the way her hairstyle was, types of electronics that they used. We talked about the Walkman before that Stansfield had. Those things are relics of a bygone era now. And it's funny because they're made new in some sense. I don't know. It would be so cool, I think, to have a cassette tape, a Walkman. And I think cassette tapes have made a resurgence. I know that last year, vinyl actually, for the first time in I don't even know how long, but in 2022, vinyl outsold CDs.
Vinyl finds a way.
Shout out to Jeff Goldblum. Love that guy. He's like my spirit animal. But no, I think it's aged well. I think that it's funny because listening to this podcast, wow, it's so funny too, because we had talked about this for so long, and
The Professional has been on our list since probably the very beginning, like this
since
very
even
start.
before we started doing the podcast, I think we had talked about it before, and so for us to reach this point, yeah, it's awesome.
I hope we did it justice.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really hope so. I'm a big fan, and
Fantastic movie.
yeah, absolutely. I think that movies have a way to truly I don't know, we love shows, we love movies as humans. It's funny, we spend so much time living vicariously through other people by watching these shows. Everybody around the water cooler will talk about Breaking Bad, or
Mad Men.
well, you got right, Mad Men. Again,
Game of
all
Thrones.
these Game of Thrones. Thank you. There it was. Right. We have these shows that we talk about, and these characters that we talk about as well, right? And we have, going back to Breaking Bad and Mad Men, we have these anti-heroes. There's this complexity that draws us. It continues to draw us because these people are so flawed as well. You can appreciate the complexity of what it is to just be a human, the human experience. That's why I said before, we're different people after we've seen these movies, after we've experienced this, to the extent that we are open to experiencing these things, to the extent that we can sit with whatever uncomfortable feelings arise from traumatic experiences in our past as well. Hence the mindfulness piece, why it's so important to cultivate that.
My only thing is go see the extended version or the international version.
Yeah, I need to now.
Well, as we wrap things up, is there anything that you're watching that you'd like to recommend, film or TV?
I really haven't been watching a whole lot. I've been reading this book called Think Better by Ulrich Lenner, a professor at Notre Dame, and it's really, really interesting. It's like logic. It's applying different aspects of philosophy, which is great because having earned my degree in philosophy, there are themes that he ties together that just that answer these kind of age-old questions that I've had, or at least lead me in another direction to help me to search for more answers. Right? There's no, again, definitive answer, but it certainly helps me to kind of make connections to things that I didn't understand before. So that's been a joy to read. Is there anything that you're watching?
Not a ton, but what I did watch all the way through was Swarm, which I was telling you about, created by Donald Glover. Swarm can be watched on Prime Video, so go check it out there. I believe it's a Prime Video original, and it's actually kind of funny because the way I got into it was there was this clip, I think it was on Instagram. My wife sent it to me, and it's like the main character girl interacting with Billie Eilish. It's like you got Donald Glover and Billie Eilish involved in this thing. All right, let's do this.
Sign me up. Her first act. I mean, she's done music videos, but this is her first like TV
Actual
show
acting gig, yeah. And she does a great job. I'll say that much.
That little clip that I saw as well that you sent me after you asked me about if I'd seen it, I was impressed by, at least, and I thought it was really good. I was impressed.
Afflictionados is available on all of those fancy streaming services you folks like to use. New episodes drop on the first Saturday of each month, 5 a.m. Pacific. If you enjoy our content, then go ahead and leave us a nice review. It will be much appreciated. Thank you so much to listeners out there for joining Michael and I. This has been Afflictionados Podcast, episode 23, Leon the Professional, and we will see you all next time.
Bye.